Alrighty guys, shop update. Haven't done one of these in a little bit. I've been doing a couple lives. It's raining. It's been a day. So, I'll bring the AC gauges. Cool. Dennis is going to bring me my AC gauges. So, Dennis is going to be coming up. He's going to be doing the red and black bike. Let's just spin. So, Tulip. Scotty ordered bearings. We figured out why his bearings were chewed up. His oil pickup fell apart. That's a new one to me. Never seen that happen. Apparently the vibration caused the screw to back out and allowed the pickup to fall off. It's a swivel pickup. So he's got new bearings on the way. The crank's good. Everything's good. We caught it super early. I mean, he changes his oil so religiously it doesn't have time to spin a bearing. The red and black bike should be done this weekend-ish. So I got brand new OEM rings, brand new Kibble white valve seals, and a brand new head gasket and base gasket. We're ready to freaking go on this. This girl, I've got a couple bearings on back order, along with Ricky's motor. I've got a couple bearings on back order. Nichols' bike is ready to go to the track. Auto purge, everything's rocking and rolling on it, and it runs sweet, and the purge works great. It's Ricky's motor, Nichols parts. The motor on the run stand, I have yet to hear from him. There's no deposit paid. All I've got is the rods paid for, and they're here. This girl, got the water pump block off today. Need to put that on and pull all the hoses off and all that for dry block. Need to raise it up a little bit. Needs a flat pan, needs a shock, and then we can put it together, go to the track. He's also talking about getting a tank shell and a fuel cell, so that'll rock and roll there. Let's see. This girl here is ready to go home. So I'd like to do one more little drive just to double verify the E85 drivability. But the power on E85 is there. The only thing is it frickin' did a massive power wheelie and then spun because I was in the rain. And I decided it was time to come home. I've currently got the battery off of that. I used it just to quick start that girl. He's ordering the same battery, so I'm just going to put the battery back in this so it can go home. That one's ready to go home. Let's see. Any of y'all who've been around a long time, you've seen this bike before. So this is Totaro's bike. I built this bike. It's a pretty wicked little freaking street bike. He fired it up, warmed it up the other day, shut it off, and when he came back to start it up again, it wouldn't crank, it wouldn't do shit. He thought he'd locked the motor. He was in panic mode. No, it was just starter failure. So it's a fairly decent compression motor, and it just beats on the starter over time, and the starter decided it no longer wanted to starter. So put a new used starter on it, and it's good to go. I do need to change the oil on that so he can come pick it up. This girl. So I jumped in here. It had a miss. I cleaned the injectors. Now it doesn't have a miss, so I'm guessing one of the injectors got gummed up over the winter. Fuel pressure sensor was not calibrated appropriately. Oil pressure sensor had a bad wire, got that fixed. But this thing's starting, running, and driving. Everything's good. You'll see some stuff disconnected. That's because I just got done checking the valves on it. We're waiting on 3 little nitrous lines. And then this thing will be ready to go rock and roll, hopefully. And a battery. I'm waiting on a battery. I got to pull the battery back out of this that goes to that bike. I just wanted to confirm it would start with the P10S. Let's see. I got a bunch of parts in today from Hard Times. Hard Times Parts and Services for all your Suzuki Hayabusa needs. I ordered a couple gasket sets from him. Anyway, the MS3 bike. So this bike is actually running phenomenal. Give me a second. Still has a chunky idle. Don't know what that is. I'm going to chalk it up to just being odd. It's different. Don't know why it has a chunky idle, but it has a chunky idle. So this thing's making great power and pulling good and running good up to 9,463 RPM when it loses crank signal. So I've had this issue in the past, and typically in a max, I can adjust the voltage threshold and it will behave. In the MS3, I don't have a voltage threshold to work with. So what I'm going to do, I have another crank trigger, the wheel, on the shelf. I'm going to knock a tooth off of it and make it a 24-2 instead of a 24-1. My suspicion, and I haven't been able to confirm it because this thing shuts off every time it freaking sees the sync loss, it has a shutoff. So it doesn't return until you key cycle. If I can find the setting and confirm it, if I keep it running with the sync loss and just have a false limiter, I would most likely see that it's going to have 25 peaks instead of 24. 24 peaks instead of 23. It's reading a false 25th tooth. Okay, at high RPM, the resolution's not there and it's reading a false tooth. So what I'm planning to do is knock a second tooth off and make it a 24 minus 2 crank trigger so it's more tolerant of high RPM. That's why Suzuki did it anyway. It made it more tolerant at higher RPM. So the Gen 2 already has that. Gen 1 doesn't. So I'm going to do that. If that works, we're going to be in business. Then I've just got a little bit of tuning left, and then I can go ahead and start putting boost to it. Because right now, for baseline tuning purposes, I have a hose hooked to a regulator with 6 psi on the bottom of the gate, holding the gate wide open so it doesn't make boost. Given it's still making boost. It made 117 kPa, which I think is like 4 pounds of boost, 3 pounds of boost. I don't know. It made boost. I got to run the math. But in any case, progress is being made on this. I just hit a freaking hiccup. I was hoping I was through the hiccups. I wasn't through the hiccups. It happens. Not a big deal. We'll get through it. I thank you, boss, for your patience. I really, really do. This thing has hit more roadblocks than any bike since the ZX14 Fuel Tech. That thing hit more roadblocks than I could count. Speaking of, not this weekend, but the next weekend, that bike will be down here to go to its new owner. And we'll see if we film anything. Probably not. But Rob is going to be coming out with a new bike. It's actually not new. It's a Motorhead build, my tune, Hayabusa. So, y'all see that. But yeah, that's what we got going on. It's about time to wrap up my day. It's getting kind of later. I'm trying to shift back to being a day shifter. So for the last about week, I've been getting up at like 11 at the shop by noon and working till like 1 or 2 in the morning. Actually, it's been like midnight, and then the next day would be 1, and the next day would be 2, and the next day would have been 3, and it's like I'm slowly creeping towards the overnight shift, and I need to creep back. The day shift thing is more beneficial to a business. So, probably going to wrap up my day and head to the house, do laundry and all that jazz. And then I will come back tomorrow and change out the wheel on that. See if I can get rid of the false limiter. If I can't, then I'm going to run a dedicated crank sensor signal. So dedicated wire just direct to ECU for crank sensor and see if it's a noise issue. It's definitely losing crank signal. Okay, it's definitely losing crank signal because the RPM goes to nada. Okay, if it was cam signal, I'd have issues that I couldn't resolve by putting it in wasted spark bank fuel and ignoring the cam sensor. I tried ignoring the cam sensor, it still does it. So it's a crank sensor issue. So, we're getting through it. Life's moving on. And the season's about to start, y'all. We were at the track this weekend. I'm going to throw a couple clips here in at the end. A couple passes we had with the turbo. We're figuring it out. We're working our way to it, but the tracks just aren't quite there for a turbo yet. Later.